The room went silent. Forks clinked against plates, and jaws dropped. The fancy restaurant, filled with snobby rich people in shiny suits and sparkly dresses, stared at the simple woman standing by the kitchen door. Her name was Lila, and she wore a plain blue dress and a shy smile. Nobody expected this. Nobody. Just minutes ago, the head chef, Mr. Gaston, had laughed so hard his face turned red. "You? Cook for us?" he'd mocked, pointing at Lila. "You're just a cleaner. Go scrub floors, not pans." The crowd had laughed too, their giggles sharp like knives. It was a cruel joke. They'd told Lila to cook for the biggest food contest in the city, expecting her to fail spectacularly. But now? Now, they weren't laughing. Lila's dish sat on every table. It was a simple-looking pie, golden and steaming, with a smell that made your stomach beg. The judges, famous chefs with tall hats and serious faces, took one bite. Their eyes widened. One judge, a grumpy old man named Chef Pierre, dropped his fork. This is impossible," he gasped. "This is the best dish I've ever tasted," the crowd whispered, confused. How could a cleaner make something this good? Lila stood quietly, her hands folded. She didn't brag or smile smugly, but her eyes sparkled with a secret. The host of the contest, a loud man in a glittery suit, grabbed the microphone. "Lila, who are you?" he demanded. "How did you do this?" The room leaned forward, waiting for her answer. But Lila just looked at the floor, her lips tight. The tension was thick, like fog in the air. Then, a woman in the back stood up. She wore a chef's coat and a sneer. "She's lying," she shouted. "She must have cheated. No cleaner can cook like this," the crowd murmured, nodding. Doubt spread like wildfire. Miss Gaston crossed his arms, smirking. "Prove it," he said. "Cook again, right now, in front of us all." Lila's face went pale. The host clapped his hands. "Yes, a live cook-off. Lila versus our champion, Chef Vanessa." The crowd cheered, hungry for drama. Lila's eyes darted to the kitchen, then back to the floor. Would she say no? Would she run? The room buzzed with excitement, but also cruelty. They wanted her to fail. The host pointed to the kitchen. "Lila, go," he said. She took a shaky step forward, her simple shoes clicking on the shiny floor. Everyone watched, waiting for her to crumble. But just as she reached the kitchen door, she stopped. She turned, and for the first time, she looked straight at the crowd. Her eyes weren't shy anymore. They burned. "I'll cook," she said softly. The room gasped. What was she hiding? Who was this woman? The kitchen door swung shut behind her, and the crowd exploded with whispers. What happened next would change everything, but nobody saw it coming. Lila's life wasn't always full of gasps and golden pies. Just a week ago, she was sweeping floors at the Golden Spoon, the fanciest restaurant in town. Her days were quiet, filled with the soft hum of a broom and the clatter of dishes. She wore her plain blue dress, her brown hair tied back in a messy bun, and nobody noticed her. Not the chefs, not the waiters, not the customers in their shiny clothes. Lila was invisible, and she liked it that way. But Lila had a secret. At night, when the restaurant closed, she'd sneak into the kitchen. Under the dim glow of a single light, she'd chop onions, stir sauces, and mix dough. She didn't have fancy tools or recipes written on paper. Everything was in her head, like a song only she could hear. She'd hum softly, her hands moving fast, turning simple ingredients into dishes that smelled like magic. Nobody knew. Nobody cared. Until that day, it started with a spilled tray. A waiter, rushing with a tower of plates, tripped and sent food flying. The head chef, Mr. Gaston, screamed, his face red as a tomato. "Clean it up," he barked at Lila. She knelt, scrubbing the floor, while the kitchen buzzed with panic. The Golden Spoon was hosting the city's biggest cooking contest in just a few days, and everyone was stressed. Chefs argued, pots boiled over, and Mr. Gaston kept yelling. Lila stayed quiet, her broom moving steadily. That's when Chef Vanessa, the restaurant's star, noticed her. Vanessa was tall, with perfect hair and a sharp smile. She won every contest she entered, and she knew it. "Hey, cleaner girl," she said, smirking. "Why don't you cook for the contest? It'd be hilarious." The other chefs laughed, and Mr. Gaston joined in. "Yeah, Lila, show us your skills," he mocked. They didn't mean it. They wanted to embarrass her. Lila's cheeks burned, but she kept sweeping. I don't cook," she mumbled. "Oh, come on," Vanessa teased. "It'll be fun." The others egged her on, their voices loud and mean. Lila's heart raced. She wanted to disappear, but then she thought of her secret nights in the kitchen, the dishes she made when no one was watching. Maybe, just maybe, she could try. "Okay," she whispered. The room went quiet for a second, then exploded with laughter. "She's serious," Mr. Gaston roared. They signed her up for the contest as a joke, expecting her to fail. Lila went back to her broom, her hands shaking. She didn't tell them about the flavors dancing in her mind or the recipes she'd created in the dark. She didn't tell them about her past. The day of the contest came fast. Lila stood in the back, watching chefs in tall hats rush around. Her plain dress looked out of place among their shiny coats. Vanessa strutted by, tossing her a smug grin. "Ready to lose, cleaner girl?" she said. Lila didn't answer. She just clutched her apron, her heart pounding. The contest began, and Lila stepped into the kitchen, her hands steady but her mind racing. What had she done? Why had she agreed? As she grabbed a knife and started chopping, a strange calm washed over her. The crowd outside buzzed, waiting for her to fail. But then, a scream echoed from the dining room. "Fire!" someone shouted. Smoke poured from the oven where Vanessa's dish was cooking. The room erupted in chaos, and Lila froze, her knife in mid-air. What was happening? Would the contest be canceled? Or was this her chance? The kitchen was a mess. Smoke curled from Vanessa's oven, stinging everyone's eyes. Chefs shouted, waving towels to clear the air. The crowd outside pressed against the glass doors, whispering and pointing. Lila stood frozen, her knife hovering over a half-chopped onion. Her heart thumped so loud she could hear it over the chaos. "Fire!" someone yelled again, and a waiter grabbed a fire extinguisher, spraying foam everywhere. Vanessa's scream cut through the noise. "My dish! It's ruined!" she wailed, her perfect hair now a mess. Mr. Gaston stormed over, his face redder than ever. "Who did this?" he roared, glaring at everyone. His eyes landed on Lila. "You? Were you near her oven?" The other chefs turned, their stares sharp like needles. Lila shook her head, her voice stuck in her throat. I was here," she stammered, pointing to her cutting board. Vanessa pushed through the crowd, her eyes blazing. "She sabotaged me," she accused, pointing at Lila. "She's jealous because she knows she'll lose." The crowd gasped, their whispers growing louder. Lila's cheeks burned. She wanted to run, to hide, but her feet felt glued to the floor. "I didn't touch it," she said softly, but nobody listened. The host, still in his glittery suit, clapped his hands. "Enough," he shouted. "The contest goes on, Vanessa. You have extra time. Lila, keep cooking." The crowd cheered, loving the drama. Lila's hands shook as she picked up her knife again. She could feel every eye on her, waiting for her to mess up. But something inside Lila shifted. The accusations, the laughter, the smoke, it all faded. She closed her eyes for a second, picturing her secret nights in the kitchen. She remembered the smell of her grandma's bread, the sizzle of spices in a pan. Lila wasn't just a cleaner. She was something more, something nobody here knew about. Her hands moved fast now, chopping, stirring, tasting. She worked like she was alone, like the world wasn't watching. Meanwhile, Vanessa scrambled to start over, muttering angrily. She kept glancing at Lila, her eyes narrow. What's she doing? She hissed to a chef nearby. She's too calm. The chef shrugged, but he looked nervous too. Lila's station was a whirlwind of motion herbs flying, sauces simmering, a pie crust taking shape. The smell was already drifting through the kitchen, making people's mouths water. The clock ticked down. 10 minutes left. Lila slid her pie into the oven, her hands steady but her heart racing. Vanessa was still rushing, her new dish a mess of sloppy cuts and spilled ingredients. The crowd was restless, their whispers turning to murmurs of surprise. "What's that smell?" someone asked. "Is that from her?" They pointed at Lila. The host checked his watch, grinning. "Time's almost up," he announced. Lila pulled her pie from the oven, golden and perfect. Vanessa's dish, a soggy-looking pasta, hit the counter with a thud. The judges stepped forward, ready to taste. But just as they reached for Lila's pie, Vanessa lunged forward, her face twisted with rage. "Don't eat that," she screamed. "She's hiding something." The crowd gasped, leaning in. Lila froze, her secret teetering on the edge of being exposed. What did Vanessa know? And how? The dining room buzzed like a beehive. Vanessa's accusation hung in the air, her finger pointing at Lila like a dagger. "She's not who she says she is," Vanessa shouted, her voice shaking with anger. The crowd leaned forward, eyes wide, as the host in his glittery suit raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, Vanessa?" he asked, sensing more drama. Lila stood by her pie, her face calm but her hands gripping the counter. She didn't speak, but her silence made the room feel heavier. Vanessa stormed closer, her chef's coat flapping. "I saw her last night," she said. "She was in the kitchen after hours, messing with ingredients. She's been practicing in secret." The crowd gasped, whispering furiously. "Mister." Gaston nodded, smirking. "I knew it. No cleaner cooks like that," he said. The judges exchanged looks, unsure. Chef Pierre, the grumpy one, stood up. "Is this true, Lila?" he asked, his voice sharp. Lila took a deep breath. Her eyes flicked to the crowd, then to Vanessa. "I was in the kitchen," she admitted softly. The room erupted in murmurs. "But I wasn't cheating. I was remembering." Her voice was quiet but strong, like a river under ice. The crowd went silent, confused. "Remembering what?" the host pressed, leaning forward. Lila hesitated, her fingers twisting her apron. Then she straightened up. "I used to cook with my grandma," she said. "She taught me everything. We made pies, soups, everything, in a tiny kitchen in a little village. I haven't cooked for anyone else in years. Not since—" Her voice cracked and she looked away. The crowd softened, some eyes growing wet. What was she hiding? Why had she stopped? Vanessa laughed, but it sounded nervous. "A sob story? That's your excuse?" she snapped. "Prove it! Make another dish right now." The host clapped, loving the tension. "Yes, a final test," he announced. "Lila, Vanessa, one more round. One dish, 5 minutes." The crowd cheered, but Lila's face went pale. 5 minutes? That was impossible, even for a great chef. The kitchen became a battlefield. Vanessa grabbed fancy ingredients caviar, truffles rushing like a storm. Lila moved slower, picking simple things: flour, butter, apples. The crowd whispered, doubting her. "Apples? Really?" someone muttered. But Lila's hands were steady, her eyes focused. She sliced apples so fast it looked like magic, her knife a blur. The smell of cinnamon and sugar filled the air, warm and comforting. The clock ticked down. 1 minute left. Vanessa's dish, A messy tower of food wobbled on her plate. Lila's was still in the oven, a soft glow inside. The crowd held its breath. The host counted down 10, 9, 8. Suddenly, a loud ding rang out. Lila yanked her dish out a perfect apple tart, golden and shining. Vanessa smirked, but her eyes were nervous. The judges took a bite of Vanessa's dish. They nodded, but their faces were blank. Then they tasted Lila's tart. Chef Pierre's eyes widened. He stood up, his chair scraping the floor. "This," he started, his voice shaking. "This is extraordinary!" The crowd gasped. But before he could say more, Vanessa screamed, "She's a fraud! I found her secret!" She held up a crumpled photo, waving it like a flag. The crowd froze. What was in that photo? And would it destroy Lila's chance forever?